Well, good morning. As Chris have said, I'm Leire. I'm come from Goyener. I am a colleague of Chris. And well, we are going to explain the results of the intervention that we made in the energy cooperative. First of all, I will contextualize the intervention. I will explain which is the situation in Spain, then the intervention that we have carried out, and then Cruz will explain the main results that we have obtained. So regarding the use cases, we are going to, this intervention is based in the second use case, which is the one of the energy cooperative. And for that, we have made the intervention in Goyener. Goyener is an electrical cooperative from the Basque Country, from the north of Spain. So first of all, I will explain how the electricity system in Spain works and how the billing and so on are done. So, well, the electricity system in Spain is divided in 4 different sectors. We have the generation, transport, distribution, and retailing. The transport and distribution are regulated sectors, and the generation and retailing are non-regulated or are liberalized sectors. This intervention is based or is mainly directed to the retailing part. The retailing part, as I have said, is a free market, but here there are the 5 big utilities that control more than the 19% of the market. So it is a free market, but we can say that is a half free, or they say that it's free, but it's not that free as free as they said. The components of the electrical tariff, the components that we receive in the billing, we have, first of all, the network charges that are 1/3 of the bill. It's a part of the tariff that goes to fund the DSOs and TSOs. They will have taxes, which are another 1/3 of the bill. Here we have different kind of taxes, like compensation to the renewable, for example. And then we have the energy part. In the energy part, we have the regulated tariff or the free market. So depending on the retailer that you are or you have contracted, you can be in the regulated tariff, which is directly linked to the spot market, or in the free market. The free market, there are all kinds of different tariffs, mainly flat rate tariffs. The tariff is billed every month based on the power that you have contracted and the amount of the energy that you have used that month. And then a coefficient is applied to each of the components. And this coefficient contains network charges and taxes, and also the energy cost or the energy price of that month. As we have said, this intervention is based on the change of the tariff that we have, that was implemented in Spain in June of 2021. Historically, households have 6 different tariffs, so you could choose one of those 6. And they were based, they were different depending on the contracted power, if it was less than 10 or more than 10, and then the number of the energy periods, that was 1, 2, or 3. So you could choose to have just 1 energy period, 2 or 3. In 2020, the government defined a new tariff system that was implemented in June of 2021. The aim was to unify all the household tariffs just in one. It was also changed the methodology used to calculate the network charges and taxes. And the new tariff was that each household or each contract could contract or could have, can have 2 power periods and 3 energy periods. And that's the same for all of us. So nowadays, there is just 1 tariff for all the households. The objective of this new tariff was to provide a better price signal to the consumers in order to foster energy efficiency, also to reduce the network congestion by fostering load shifting from peak hours, to valley hours, to foster the penetration of distributed generation and the electrification of different services, and to simplify the electrical tariff structure. The initial social answer was quite bad because the communication campaign and the press was doing quite a bad, was giving a bad impression of this change. but the reaction of the people, as we have analyzed, was not that bad, mainly in the first month. So people was changing their behavior. But then in the long-term results, we have seen that the results were masked by the huge increase of the energy prices that we have. So nowadays we can't say if people is changing behavior because of the tariff change or because of the increase of the energy prices. Well, the intervention, as said, it has been done in Goyener, a citizen energy cooperative, which was created in 2012. Nowadays, its main activity is the commercialization of renewable energy and also the generation of renewable energy. Here you can see the tariff change that we have implemented in Goyener. Up in the upside, there are two of the old tariffs, the one with two energy periods and the other one with the 3 energy periods. And in the downside, the one that we have now. So we have in the two power periods, the cheaper one is the P2 and the highest or the expensive one is the P1. And in the energy, it happens the same. We have 3 energy periods, the peak, flat and valley hours, that they are changing depending on the hour and on the days. The objective of the intervention, well, taking advantage of the change of tariff, we design a randomized control trial to see if a change of tariff can modify or could modify the demand distribution, with the aim also to reduce energy consumption and peak demand, to see if the change has any impact on the deployment of distributed generation and electrification, to analyze which groups were the ones having more difficulties to change their behavior and why they were having those difficulties, which were the barriers, and also evaluate if nudges of different types have an effect on energy consumption. So in this randomized control trial, what we did was an information campaign with all the household contracts that we had in Goyener. So information and tips were sent to all households once a month. And apart from that, we created 4 different groups: a control group, which was receiving this information, and 3 experimental groups. Those experimental groups were receiving the information of the information campaign, but they were receiving also an additional tip. And depending on the experimental group that they were being, the information or the tip that they were receiving was different. For example, the experimental group of economy were receiving tips about economy. The one about the environment, tips about the environment. So they were different. Those extra tips were different between each groups. The intervention lasted 12 months, 6 months of experiment and 6 months of assessment. And now Cruz will explain the results.
So we focus, the assessment that we have done has been focused on 3, let's say 3 levels. We have a set of KPIs where we are going to assess the technical aspect of the change of tariff. What are the technical change, let's say. Then we have been also focused on the economical change, cost, for everyone. And also we have also assessed the social aspect. If there has been a consumer engagement, if someone has been penalized, or if it has been just move, and also we have also assessed the barriers. So the first thing that we have to say is that at first the period that we wanted to compare, it's from June 2021 to June 2022. This is the experimental phase, and we need to compare with another similar year, the past year. And first we say, okay, June 2020 towards June 2021 was our first bet. because, I mean, last year we continue to have some restriction in Spain, and the restriction in Spain in June 2020 was more or less the same. But when we see the actual energy consumption and the actual energy distribution was like, no way, you can't compare those 2 years. 2020, it's completely outlier, and we need to go 1 year before. So this is a couple of problematics, because our data sets are very good from 2020, but before that, we are going to have 6 months that are continue to have a lot of data, but for some data, we don't have enough data. But well, this is something that we need to live with. All in all science from now till the end of the years. So what we have is the information from the smart meters from all the clients from ONR. This is a very large data set, 22,000 data set, smart meter data. And then we ran a survey that is anonymized. The survey was answered by more or less 700 people. And for a small sample of 300, we have one question that they anonymize the survey. So we can connect the smart meter data with the answer to the survey. The key point here is that these are not random samples. We are not the National Statistics Bureau or these kind of things to make a random sample. So we need to make opportunistic samples. So people have self-present volunteers to participate here. So this has to be taken into consideration that the results that we are going to produce are not from random samples and could have bias. So how we are going to use these 3 different information that we have. I mean, from the census, we are going to assess the load shifting and the overall energy consumption. And we have a huge sample, so we can be quite confident on those results from the, let's say, the overall results. And from the anonymized survey, we are going to know more about the socioeconomic profiles, from the barriers, and some information that we can try to link with smart meter data. And then we also have 2 other sources of information that are going to help us to assess these KPIs. One are the purchase orders and the data from the spot market from ONR, that it's going to help us to assess what are the impact for the energy cooperative. And also we have Google Analytics to assess the consumer engagement and if people have been taking care, reading the advice and these kind of things. So first thing that we need to discuss is the potential co-founders. I mean, the energy consumption on the second year and the first year could be also influenced by other things, not only by the intervention or the change of the tariff. We know that the weather and the use are important co-founder factors. The weather was quite similar, are not the best one, but I mean any statistical test has been able to say that the 2 are different. So we are at the moment we are assuming that they are similar. We will later on make a counterfactual. We have a huge elephant in the room, that is the change of tariff, the change of the energy prices. As we can see, I mean the first change is here. When we changed the tariff was more or less the same on the first trimester, 3 months period, third quarter after the change of tariff. But then the price of the energy skyrockets. This is something that we need to control somehow. Yeah, we will see that this has been an effect, but it's going to be profound, let's say, with the change of tariff. And it's going to be really hard to separate those. And the other potential co-founder that we know is the amount of time works, but I mean, this is a lot of people with regular schedules, and has not happened anything strange in the regular schedules in Euskadi in those years. So I mean, so we are more or less confident, except about the prices, that we can compare 2000 and let's say 22 with 2019. Okay. So the first KPI is consumer engaged. Has people read the tips? I mean, more or less 35% of the people have actually read the tips. More or less 75% of people has received the emails and have opened them and has at least downloaded the bill, let's say. So it's more or less fairly what we were expecting. This is the state of the art. I mean, when you do these kind of things, this is the amount of people that you are trying to involve. So then assessing the answer. The first question that we make, I mean, there was a list of them, but I mean, the first one is, have you read the tips and have been helpful for you? Mostly the people have saying that yes, they have read them, and they have around 60% of the person has been reading them. I mean, remember, those are the ones that has answered the survey, not the entire population. So this is a little bit biased, because if you answer the survey, most probably you are the ones that are engaged. Okay. This is the relevant question. It has been new to you, and most of the people say that no. They know this kind of thing. So people are normally knows these kind of tips. I mean, that you need to save energy, that you need to take it help. I mean, that these kind of tips are common sense, let's say. But then we asked, did the advice help you? And a lot of people say yes, and most probably because this is a reminder, and remind things is always good. Okay, now let's start with the political questions. What do you think the change of tariff has been made? Most of the people say that they wanted to, they answered the right question. I mean, the right answer. I mean, to change shifting energy from peak to non-peak. Okay, so the communication campaign has worked, let's say. But remember that this is a multiple answer, so people can choose more than one. But there is also a lot of people that say that we wanted to increase revenue. And also there is a lot of people that say reducing the external dependency. No, I mean, yeah, increase revenue. Yeah. The second question, the second interesting question is that what is your opinion on the change of tariff? And there is a lot of people that say that this is a good measure. Okay, even as they are quite skeptical about the results. No, sorry, it was not a good measure, because they are not going to, they always get the one fourth. But I mean, there is two groups, the green one and the black one, that say that it's got a good measure. So a lot of people saying that they don't agree with the measure, let's say. And then we talk about the actions that have been taken. And this is an important question, because this show the potential flexibility that are at household. And this is the most relevant, probably the most relevant slide of the entire presentation. What people has done after a communication campaign, a change of the tariff, and a huge increase of the energy prices is changing the washing machine and dishwasher schedules. This is the flexibility that you can extract from households. Okay. They also have some changes of time of use of some household appliance, but these most probably are very, very few and with a very, very little impact. Okay. And then there is other smaller actions. Okay. There is an important thing that, for example, one of the ones that could be relevant is changing my meal times, trying to not align with peak time. And this was not done. And this is probably the only thing that could be extracted from the household that have a huge impact. And also there is a lot, I mean, 30% of the people that have already, I mean, start use the eco-function, right? But this is what we can get, okay? Because something more aligned as we have in this experiment, we are not going to have. I mean, what we could have is rationing. I mean, this is the next step, okay? So what barrier have to form? And I mean, and as everyone expected, is that my work, school, whatever schedule, my family schedule, it's what is imposed me to consume energy at that amount of hours. So if we wanted to change the distribution of energy consumption, we don't need to focus on the household. We need to focus on the other things that make the household behave that way. So if we don't change the schedules, we don't change the behavior. There is an interesting one that is the black one. I don't want to disturb the family of neighborhoods. This is, I don't know, I mean, perhaps it's quite strange for other people, but here in Spain, around 70% of the people live in flats, normally poorly insulated. And there is even legislation that goes against putting the washing machine at certain hours. A lot of people say, okay, we don't want it to disturb the family of neighborhoods and this kind of thing. But then we ask, okay, have you have any problem changing your behavior? No. So, I mean, this is a kind of countermeasure. I mean, there is some legislation. People are afraid of disturb other people, but they don't know the disturbance all have happened. It could happen because anyone has changed their behavior. That is not true, because a lot of people change their behavior, or because this is probably an infundate thing. And this is relevant because one of the main problems that we have in the bad communication campaign from the government when they change of tariff is that one of the actions that the government or journalists, or we don't know who spread the word, was that they asked about to ironing at late nights, or putting the washing machine at late nights, and the answer was, how I'm going to do that? I'm going to disturb my neighborhoods, I'm going to don't sleep, and blah blah blah. I mean, this is the kind of, this is why we say that it was a very really bad press. So, actual results, okay? First thing that we need to assess is this a zero-sum game, or there is some inputs and outputs? And indeed, there is outputs. I mean, the energy consumption has been reduced. At first, when we compare with 2020, it was an 8%. Even we have some with the preliminary result, a 10% reduction. This is huge. Okay, this is huge. Okay. So this was the first thing that we say, okay, are we sure that we are looking to the right year? Because in this year, we continue to have teleworking, restrictions, should be similar to the one that we have in 2021. But let us start, and we check with a clean year, that is 19 to 20. And the reduction continued to be a 5%, but continue to be large, but it's more credible. And at first, when we make the first assessment with only 6 months, the 6 months are, let's say, the experimental work, not the washout, it was only a 2% reduction. Okay, so it was relatively comparable. So we need to take care that we have an energy reduction. So we cannot make the numbers, let's say, in absolute numbers, because we can have some relative masking things. So we go to the next slide, and this is relative numbers. It's the relative amount of energy that a person has consumed in each one of the 3 periods. What we are expecting is that in peak and in flat energy consumption periods, that are the most expensive one, the energy consumption is reduced, and in the valley is increased, because this is actually the lowest shifting that the tariff structure is imposing or fostering. And overall, we are seeing the movement, okay? We are seeing a 3% reduction, more or less, in the peak value, and the flat is so-so, and increase in the energy consumption in the valley. Please remember that we have a 5% reduction in energy consumption, and mostly goes to the peak energy consumption. So people are doing right. I mean, people has learned and has understand the message. Avoid at all costs, consume energy at peak values, and try to move as much as you can to the valley. This is the overall result. And this is from a sample of almost 20,000 people. It's a little bit less, but yeah. Time frame, valley. Here, it's the same color code.
The green one.
The green one is the valley. It's 9th and holidays. And the flat is, I mean, the peak is in the afternoon. I mean, in noon, let's say. In the evening, it's lunch and dinner time in Spain. And the flats are in betweens, let's say. So people are trying to not consume energy in the, let's say, in the center hours of the day, and when they return home from work, let's say. Please note that this is also one of the things that was a little bit complained, because now in Spain we have a huge amount, around 30% of the energy is generated by short PV panels. So if the gas was not so absolutely high at this point, most probably this was not peak time anymore. This was one of the first complaints, and the CNMC, that is the one that regulates all the things, that say, okay, when this time comes, we change again the change of tariff, and we change again the period. But so far, I mean, until the duck curve is starting to appear hugely in Spain, we have this kind of tariff structure. Oh, come on. This one is better for later. Coge también el micro porque me cuesta bastante escuchar. My third best bet is that this one is going to be mostly European-wide. I will even say worldly, I mean human-wide, let's say. The change of tariff, I mean, it's going to mostly depend on the, let's say, schedules, this kind of things. I mean, how flexible are the schedules, or how not flexible are the schedules of the people? Here in Spain, we have a lot of presentialisms. I don't know how to say that. I mean, people are requested to be at work long hours, even if you are not doing anything productive. We have a lot of those. So then we have these strange schedules when the kids are sometimes, let's say, in the school, but the parents are requested to work afternoon. So it's like, okay, come on, why we are not aligned, completely aligned, and we could spread the thing, okay? And this kind of thing. I mean, for my... No tenemos ninguna curva de carga, ¿no? If you see a typical load profile from Spain, you say that it's, I mean, well, we are going to see it when we present the result of World Package 2. But what you are typically seeing is that you have peaks when you are at home. Usually it's Monday morning, breakfast, and then depending on your schedule, lunchtime and the dinner time. if everyone gets at home at 8 o'clock, because this is the schedule of everyone, you are going to have a huge peak there. But if people are spread since 3 o'clock towards 8 o'clock, because your schedule are flexible, kids get out from the school, you go to get out, enjoy the time, whatever, those are going to be the aligned, and you can reduce the peak load. But I mean, how far you can generalize this to other countries? Probably you need to go into assess these kind of things, and this is something that we are going to try to do in Work Package 2, and I'm going to present a little bit more about that. More questions? It was this one. Okay, so next thing that we try to understand, okay, this was something that happened sometime and then wash out, or this continued through the, let's say, the time. This is the same as before, relative numbers. We don't see any pattern. I mean, so seems like the change has happened and it's continued to happen. Why this continue to happen? It's because the increase of prices, it's because we have learned and we have lived on these kind of things or not. This is something that we will require a second survey in order to try to understand that. But my best bet is that people has changed the behavior, because this is too many months of sustainable change. Okay. Okay, the cost for the consumers. This is an important thing. We have to make some tricks. Okay, there is a period of time where the two tariff has been alive at the same time. Okay, so we take this tariff and spread both ways. Okay, so this is not actually what has been billed. It has been cost for the people if the price has not changed. Okay. Because one of the things that they have said, I mean, the potential, let's say, negative effect of the tariff is that this is going to be an increase of the prices for everyone and these kind of things. And the answer was no. I mean, it was a reduction of 2% with respect to the clean year, almost a 4% with the dirty one that has a higher energy consumption. And then when we see the actual cost, this is not true, because I mean the price has skyrocketed, and it was like 8% more of cost. We cannot assess with the clean year because we don't have data. I mean, the 2019, we don't have data for the invoices for 2019. And this is a really important question that I make. This is a correlation plot. Here is the actual invoice, and this is, we ask how much cost have you paid for the energy, and the correlation is so, okay, but when you put the numbers there, people are more or less aware of how much they cost until you reach a large part of the energy consumption, and then you see this kind of people think that they pay more than they think. There is one outlier that is here. No, this one, no, this is an even more extreme outlier that was here. So they say that they pay like, like 5,000 euros and they pay like 20,000 or something like that. So it was like, okay, guy, you are going to get a bill, quite interesting, but this is removed from the, okay, what happened by the, let's say they changed the focus. Now we are not seeing what happened for the consumer, but what happened to Goyener. I mean, the key element for Goyener is the forecasting error, because they have to go to the market and buy the thing. Okay, we don't have information from 2019 again, but we have from the dirty, the 2020 and 2021. And what we can see is that a huge reduction on the forecasting error, but this is probably not due to the change of tariff. It's because we are not seeing the, let's say, the period during the COVID restriction and these kind of things that, well, we know that this thing happened. And I remember Santi in the first meeting that we have from White saying that, well, you have to do your best. Now, what we have done later to see if what are the consumer groups that has been most affected by the change. What we have done is that we split the population that we have in different kind of groups, and we see if they have changed. I mean, if we see the pattern, this pattern or not. Okay. Red ones, if I remember well, are they don't follow the pattern. Okay, so those are the ones that have not changed. Okay, and we can see, I mean, because they have not changed for different reasons. Okay, but normally is that they don't care or they just simply follow. Okay, so the first thing is the experimental group. And this is the randomized control trial at the end, and we don't see any change. I mean, the splitting of the groups, it's indistinguishable, let's say, from the overall overall trend. So they change the behavior, and any group has changed more than any other group. So no change at all. But then we start with the interesting ones. That, for example, the contracted power. Less than 2 kilowatts of contracted power are probably very energy poor people or other things. That could be the antenna of your house. I don't know, different kind of contracts that are quite strange. So here there are something to assess. Then the salary. What we are seeing is that as far as the salary increase, the changes are bigger. I mean, the ones that are with low salaries have not changed. But this is a little strange because when you see the figures, you see that what they have done is a huge reduction in energy consumption, but not a change of, let's say, move their energy consumption. So most probably this have to be done splitted by how much have you been your reduction and how much have you changed your energy consumption, let's say. With a total saving capacity the same, and the energy budget is something interesting because everyone has not changed the behavior. So when you make this kind of assessment, is something that strange happened there. Then we have with regions, then we have that the people that live in Madrid, in the capital, that we have enough people in the pool of clients of Goyener to make an assessment. They don't have changed the behavior, but there is so few people that could be anything. Okay, but what is interesting is that people that live in isolated areas are the ones that don't have changed the behavior, and this is strange because these people should be the ones that don't have schedules. And most probably because of that, they don't have changed the behavior. I don't know. I mean, the language they used for communication, I mean, this was a troll question, I mean, that we put here, because we send the survey in the two questions in Basque country, in Basque language and in Spanish, Castilian. And we say, okay, we hope that we don't see any difference between those, because if not, this is going to be fun. And fortunately, we don't see any difference. The gender distribution, I mean, the way we ask, the easiest way to know if there are differences or not, if is at home, all persons are men or not. But because what we have asked is how many girls are in your house. So we just compare 0 in that question with non-zero. And yeah, seems like when all men are in the house, they don't have changed the behavior. So not a mini point for girls. I mean, having children or other relative, it's something also that is interesting when you have children or other relative. I mean, if this is the same, 0, no 0, non-zero is the one that don't change the behavior, and this is also kind of expected. And then the mean age, and it seems like the young and the very old has not changed the behavior. Again, mostly expected. And this is a kind of surprise, the oldest one, but because they normally are the energy poor and more conscious and this kind of thing, but also there is other kind of things that could happen there. Again, university studies or non-university studies, and the others was the one that found change the behavior. Yeah. Then we have this is psychological profiles. Yeah, I mean, this is also the same. If you are not conscious at all with the change of tariff, the change of energy transition, and these kind of things, you have not changed your behavior. And then when we see the psychological profiles, more or less happen what is expected. But I don't think that I have enough time to present each one of those. If you wanted to know more, you could ask later on. This is another troll answer, the troll question that we put here. I mean, self-perception of the action carried out. I mean, the people that say that they don't have changed the behavior, effectively, they don't have changed the behavior. Okay, and it's clear. I mean, you see the bars, and it's clearly that they don't have made the change the behavior. And then we have also asked about the, let's say, the household envelope. I mean, the type of house, and I mean, the people that rent don't change the behavior. The people that live in houses don't have not changed the behavior. The people that have the large house don't have changed the behavior. And this is an important thing, and this is quite relevant, is that the people that live in newer house or in a very well insulated house also have not changed the behavior. And this is a co-founder there. Most probably it's because they cannot. I mean, in a very insulated house or a new house, the only thing that you can make to change your behavior is what we have said before: the washing machine and the dishwasher. And this is noise. Very few amount of energy consumption to see anything at all. So most probably we are not seeing anything here because we cannot see anything there. Okay. And then we make energy poverty risk. This is an index that has been developed in PowerPool in another project. I think that there is a mistake here because the no risk has not have changed the behavior. It was only the risk and low risk, the ones that have not changed the behavior. I think I have to check this one. Okay. Yeah, what they classify, I mean, there is no person in energy poverty in the sample. Let's say we only have people in risk and in low risk or low risk or no risk. And if I remember correctly, only the people in risk was the one that don't have changed the behavior. But I have to check. I mean, because it's not even in bold, so there's something strange here. And now, this is one of the most complex figure that we have. This is the same groups, but ordered by the amount of reduction that they have been able to do, let's say. This is for valley, and this is for peak, I mean, the change. So negative, it's, this is bad, let's say. Positive, no, negative is good, positive is bad, because we are in valley. So what we wanted is to the biggest amount of change, let's say. And what we are seeing is that the people that have low salary, energy poverty, low energy budget, energy certificated, bad energy certificated, a smaller house, large knowledge on climate change, and these kind of things, are the people that have increased more the energy consumption in valley. Okay, so those are the people that are doing great, let's say. And this is more or less what is expected. Okay. And then we have the people, I mean, the contracted power less than 2 kilowatts are the ones that have make it worse. But most probably those are other things. Those are not people, are contract power for other things. Okay, and the ones that have low saving, go up, okay, that have saving capacity, low saving capacity are the ones that also have not made it quite well. And then we see the opposite one, is the ones that have done bad. I mean, what they have increased the energy consumption. I mean, no, this is the other way around. I mean, this is the ones that have reduced more the energy consumption in peak. So the ones that have done well are the ones that are up. And you see that the ones that have a low salary have even reduced at 25% the consumption in peak. I mean, this is huge. And the ones that have building age smaller, I mean, this is the only thing that they can do. I mean, take action. I mean, this is the kind of questions that, I mean, that you can see. And again, the ones that have been not doing great here is the contracted power and yeah, other groups. Okay, yeah, conclusions. So the participation and attrition rates were comparable to the literature. The most cited barriers were the personal and family schedules. The most reported action was trying to change the schedules, but not very successful. And the washing machine and dishwasher. I mean, this was the most important. We have seen a reduction in the energy consumption, but we need to take into consideration the COVID lockdown and the energy prices. So it could not be said that it was only for the change of tariff. There has been a change in the distribution of energy. Also, people have changed, have moved energy consumption. And there is, I mean, the transfer from peak to non-peak was not spread evenly, let's say. There are buckets where they have made huge changes and other buckets that they don't have making these changes. And we are trying to get, I mean, the socioeconomic profile because we have splitted views and some of them are a little bit conflictive. I mean, so we are trying to get a, let's say, a narrative, let's say, around that. I mean, what we have expected is that the information campaign is not changing the behavior. I mean, you need something more. And the language and the number of dependent people are not making differences. I think that this was wrong. I mean, we have in the new one, we have found this one. So this is all. So question, please. No more question. Para hear this.
Cruz, very, very interesting presentation. Small questions. First one, how generalizable do you think is that? I mean, obvious question, of course, coming from the modeling perspective, but do you think we can find, let's say, easily ways to use these results and uptake them, for instance, for different countries, etc.? This is the first. The second, how much of this, let's say, impacts can be attributed to change in price and how much to the change in behavior? Was it possible through this experimental setup to really differentiate between these two? Because it's also different, the models. I mean, how much we can attribute depending on the changes in costs that we have to pay the prices, and how much is because we change our behavior. And the third, and also very important, because now everybody talks about lifestyle changes, etc. As far as I've understood, you only asked the question about changing the distribution of energy and not the actual amounts of energy. So you okay, because now it's also about the question, not only changing the schedule of your dishwasher, but also changing how much you use your dishwasher, right? I don't know if you have any interesting insights also on that, because it's also very, very useful for the modeling. Thanks a lot. Very, very interesting presentation. Thanks.
Okay. Let's start with the last one. I think Yeah. We don't know how much, but they have started to do these kind of things. This is the first one.
Sorry. This is the first but you mentioned at the beginning, of course, that the sample is biased, right?
Yes.
Do you have any indication of how large this bias can be? I mean, it's logical, I mean, I'm not question that, okay? But do you know the target relation, how much this can should decline a lot?
We don't know. I mean, this is the high question mark, but the good point is that we are in conversation with IDAE, that is a National Foundation for Energy Efficiency. They are conducting a research now, I mean, at this moment, where they have a proper, let's say, proper methodology, a proper sample. What we are going to do is compare results, and we are going to try to match those, make some sort of triangulation, and see how much bias we have, because we have common questions and we can do some cooking to the data. I mean, the problem is that most probably it's going to be done quite late into the project, because it's a free, I mean, their research is a 3-year also project. It's huge. It's for entire Spain. They do it only every 10 years. So, you know, I mean, this kind of complex project. And we are going to, since the start, we wanted to, I mean, we have shared with them the survey. They make some comments. They have also changed something in their survey because they have not realized for some other things. So yeah, let's see what we can extract later on to generalize, but this is something that we are working on. What more do you ask? The generalization. And the other one is? Please take your note. I mean, my short-term memory now at the moment are down to 0. Okay. If they have been, if we can assess differences between the high prices and the change of this is the relevant graph. I mean, we have not seen a change on time. I would like to do the same for the previous year, let's say, and put it in all together to see if we can see the jump or not. But what we see here is that the increase of the energy prices has not made the changes, because if we have seen, if this was the reality, this could have a trend, and we are not seeing the trend. Okay, this is noisy. So beware that this is my impression, but I don't have a hard confident on, I mean, test hypothesis with an absolutely low p-value. I mean, and I'm not sure if I could do that. But seeing this figure, I don't see a trend. My conclusion is that the prices was not the changes. But when we start the simulation, I mean, there was already the discussion about the huge energy price. I remember that 1 month after we start, Goyener sent an email saying, okay, next time we are going to highly increase the energy tariff and blah, blah, blah. So,
yeah, I think that the change of tariff and the increase of the prices started quite together. So there was also a campaign and the press was talking a lot about it. So they were quite aligned. So I think that we cannot say if it is the change of tariff or the electric prices increasing. They were quite in the same time.
And about the generalization, I think that this is better if we discuss when we discuss the work package for next step, because there I have a slide just to show you how I plan to do that. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be a highly generalized method, but this is what I have in mind that could work. Thomas. I don't know. I mean, how many people do we have here? Roberto Varela. Anyone knows Roberto Varela? Who is? So we continue because who is next?
Thank you. Just a question. Have you assessed the number of people in the sample who use electricity for heating?
Yes.
We
don't have making that into the assessment.
Okay.
But yeah, there is something more that we wanted to assess. One of the things that we wanted to split is by this question. I mean, the type of equipment that you have at home. But the main problem is that this is a it's a difficult question because it has too many options, and we need to take care about a different combination because it was open. So you can say that you have electric heating, and I don't know. So it's going to be tricky.
Because the results could change, no? Okay.
But the key point here is that if you ask me what is going to happen, is that we are not going to see anything different about the one that we have by the energy level, because those two are going to be relatively highly correlated somehow. I mean, this is not a numerical value, but I mean, it's going to be a overlap between those two. My guess.
Okay, thank you.
In the preliminary results, most of the people were had individual gas boilers. Most of the people.
Thank you.
More questions?
So thanks, Cruz and Leira, for a very interesting presentation. I like the last two plots that you showed with the distributions and the effects for different groups. Let's call them. And especially strikes me that the lowest salary group is also the one that in both slides actually, so both for the valley and the peak, that showed the largest response. And well, I was just reflecting, maybe that's not what you wanted in the beginning. You wanted to affect the whole population, but on the other, if you look at it from the other perspective, it could also be a very interesting result, because sometimes you want to target the most vulnerable people and make them change the behavior in a way that they will profit from. Any comments on that?
I mean, I remember the discussion. I mean, when we design these kind of things, one of the things that most worried the people at Goyener, and also when we discussed with the ethical group, was, okay, we need to try to know if anyone that is in the vulnerable group, it's going to not change their behavior, and it's going to be highly penalized by the change of tariff, because I mean, this would be unfair, let's say. But the result was that those are the ones that have most changing the behavior. I mean, and now what is the conclusion that you should extract from there? In my opinion, that being poor sucks. So if someone changed the energy tariff, you align fast, because if not, you cannot pay the bill. So this is something that is quite shocking, but this is what the answer is here.
There's a counter question to that. It's like, okay, so this might be a package that affects the vulnerable. How do we design a package that affects the non-vulnerable?
Exactly.
To create social welfare.
Exactly. My opinion on that is that you are not, I mean, you are seeing that more or less this is a huge spike, then there is a plateau, and then there is let's say that my impression more or less is that when you see this part here, it's mostly the people that you are referring to. I mean, how do you target that? Most probably you are going to need to put caps on the amount of energy that you can consume. This is the only way. My opinion.
Thanks.
My opinion. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. No, rather than a question, I would like to also comment on what Francesco said. On the one hand, it's logical that price signals are, or poor people are more receptive to price signals because it just hits harder for them. But the results, the way I've seen them, are not that, they're much more nuanced. It's not just, it's when you're poor, you react, and because actually there are some replies that seem to indicate that some people who are poor cannot change their behavior. Like we saw that people in rented accommodation, for example, do not change their behavior. If the main means of changing behavior is programming your dishwasher and in your washing machine, that doesn't make any sense, because that's the same whether you're in rented accommodation or in...
Probably what has happened with these guys is that they have the huge reduction in energy consumption. This is what has happened. I mean, they don't have, I mean, and this is the problem. When you see, I can look for the right figure. When you see the picture of those guys, it's not that they have changed, they have moved the energy consumption. What they have done is reduce the energy consumption in the peak for like crazy. Like crazy. And then they have a huge margins. I mean, the boxes are huge in all the cases, but has a reduction in the energy consumption there like crazy. And this means that you are not eating at the regular hour. You are not consuming energy consumption, because those are the ones that have produced more energy consumption and this kind of thing. So this is kind of side effect. I mean, those are the ones that are more targeted, but they have done that by necessity, probably. No,
it could be. I'm not entirely convinced, but it will be the case in a number of a number of cases, obviously. But I think we need to put more effort into interpreting and explaining the results, because they are much more nuanced than saying poor people react.
Yeah. No. I mean, when we discussed this with the ethical people, the Center of Applied Ethics, one of the tasks they command me is that we need to make a better assessment, and also the people at the about these two questions that we ask, combined with the salary. Okay, we need to, and this is something that we try with the energy poverty risk, but they say, okay, forget about energy poverty risk. You need to go to the people that risk, and those are some sort of taxonomy: single parents, families, dark families, people without enough money, blah 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 blah. I mean, I have a taxonomy there. What we have to do is to make the same assessment that we have done with that, but this is a complex one. Because we need to match different categories, and it's not going to be a very good partition, let's say. So it's going to have something that we need to do carefully, and it's going to be complex. Yeah, and the second thing that we need to do is to make it this narrative, because we need to group together results and trying to say, okay, these are the people that have been most affected because what we have seen so far is just different partitions, but we don't have, well, more or less we have a clear narrative, but I agree with Chris that sometimes it's a little bit weak. But this is something that we need to do next, than trying to put numbers. There is one thing more that we have not done yet, and it's related to what we are going to see in Work Package 2, but probably we are going better if we see in Work Package 2. It's if the hard change of behavior. We have been looking to load profiles, and we have clustered people in electrical behaviors, not with the amount of energy that you have consumed or in periods. It's just the load profile, and the idea is if we can see if there has been changes or not. And the hypothesis is that no, but let's see.
Yeah. And then maybe one other thing we also have to be clear about is the people in Goyaner in general are not poor people.
No.
In fact, I wouldn't say they're all rich people, but if you look at the replies to what the saving capacity is and the annual income, family income, then you would say, well, they're sort of medium to high. And so we lack data, at least on the survey, of people who are of really low income. So that if there are any, there would be very few, and then that might also bias the results. So yeah, there's a lot of caveats to what we're presenting here.